When I was at college, we made this really interesting wartime bread. And I've just been doing some further research on it now. And I even bought a book off the internet about it. And the fascinating thing about it is it has a really quick technique to make it. Most people don't make bread at home because they just think, oh, bread, way too much faff. But this bread, the Doris Grant loaf, has a really good shortcut because it doesn't need to be kneaded. I'm going to start with my wholemeal bread flour, and I need 225 grams. Now, wholemeal flour is really good because it has this grain that gets left in the sieve, and this grain can be used to sprinkle over the bread when it bakes. Makes it look really pretty. Right, and I don't bother sieving my strong white bread flour. We need 225 grams of that. So you might be thinking, well, why is she using white and wholemeal flour? Because the Doris Grant loaf is a really healthy loaf, but if you use just wholemeal flour, it'll be really, really stodgy and heavy. So the white flour just helps to lighten it a bit. 7 grams of fast-action dried yeast. The salt is one of the most important ingredients in bread. It can make the difference between a good loaf and a bad loaf. So I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of salt, just table salt's fine, and then mix it all together and then make a nice well, and I'm going to add 300 ml of water. Make sure it's warm because it helps the yeast work more quickly. I'm going to add a big tablespoon, a big squidge of honey to make it nice and sweet. You can use some brown sugar or even caster sugar just to sweeten the crumbs slightly. This is quite a sticky dough, but as I say with bread, the wetter the better. With a nice wet dough, you'll get a lovely big rise and a nice soft crumb. So it's all come together. So a little bit of flour on my hands. I'll just take it out of the bowl. The extra flour will stop the ball from sticking to my hands. I'm not going to knead it, I'm just going to bring it all together. And I fold the edges to the centre and squeeze it together and then rock it. You get a nice soft top. Flip it over, put it around like that, make it a nice ball shape. And then straight onto the tin. Don't need any flour or grease. So, now the bread needs to rise. I find the best way to do that is to get some cling film and spray it with vegetable oil. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, this is fine. And I know some people like to cover their bread with a damp tea towel, but I prefer cling film. And spraying vegetable oil on it will stop the dough from sticking to the cling film. So now the bread needs to rise, and I find the best place for this to rise is on a chair next to a preheated oven. And the technical reason for that is that I don't have an airing cupboard. After about 30 minutes, when it's almost doubled in size, take the cling film off, slash the top of the bread with a sharp knife, or you can use a blade, and then the bread gets brushed with the milk. I like to sprinkle over the bran I saved from when I sieved the flour. Throw 10 ice cubes in the bottom of the oven and they'll produce steam. This will make sure that the bread rises before the crust sets, so you get a lovely big puffy rise. And the bread goes in an oven heated to 200 degrees for about 30 to 40 minutes. Oh, my patience is rewarded. I'll leave it to cool completely in the tin, and then I'm going to serve it with baked garlic.